This man really knows how to hold a grudge. Episode 10. This man really knows how to hold a grudge. When Mitali saw him, she was so shocked that her lips parted slightly and she didn't know what to say. She hadn't thought that she would meet this man again so soon. It was fate. Tonight he was wearing a tailored suit that fitted him perfectly. His stature was tall and straight, and his entire body emitted an indescribable aura that filled those around him with awe. While everyone was whispering and trying to guess who he was, Mr. Walker's face changed dramatically. He rushed forward and shouted, "Mr. Clare, I never expected to meet you here." Tom couldn't believe his ears. So this was Shivi Clare, the man who had control of the city's economy and who could shake up financial circles with the snap of his fingers. He hadn't expected him to be so young. Kiali pulled Rohan aside with an ugly expression on her face. She said in a low voice, "What's going on? Isn't that the man who picked Mitali up at the airport the other day?" As soon as she said it, as if trying to prove her right, Dev, who had been standing in the corner, excitedly ran over to Shivi and hugged his calves. "Daddy, you're here," he shouted. Mitali was so embarrassed that she wanted to cover her face and run away. The argument in the car that day was still vivid in her mind. She didn't want to owe this man anything. "Daddy." Tom felt like he had been struck by lightning when he heard this. He stood there in a daze, then turned around and asked Mitali, "Is he Shivi Clare's son?" She didn't know how to answer, so she just pursed her lips slightly and turned to look at Shivi. Shivi bent down without hesitation and hugged Dev. Then he caressed Mitali's face and laughed softly. "Didn't you say we would come here together? How come you left without waiting for me?" The fingers that touched her cheek burned like fire. Her face flushed red as she tried to turn away. For a moment, she was unable to say a word. Shivi didn't care about her reaction. He just glanced at Mr. Walker, who was no longer calm. He was frightened by the man's gaze and quickly apologized. "I didn't know Miss Davidson was with you. I'll leave." Mr. Walker spoke quickly and then, without waiting for Tom to say anything, turned and left the hall. Tom could only stand there, helpless. He railed against Mitali in his heart. How could she hide her relationship with Shivi from her family? He was about to say something, but Shivi interrupted him. Holding the child in one hand and Mitali's shoulder in the other, he said, "Come on, let's go sit over there for a while." With that, he left Tom and took the other two with him. When they reached a quiet corner where nobody was paying attention to them, Mitali finally broke free from his arms. She retreated half a step and asked doubtfully, "Why did you help me?" "Of course, I didn't want to help you," Shivi sneered. He grabbed her wrist and whispered into her ear, "You're an ungrateful little thing. I'm here to get even." When he spoke, he intentionally leaned in very close to her ear, his breathing heavy. She knew that he was talking about the $100 she had thrown at him, and she felt uncomfortable and backed away slightly. She hadn't expected this man to hold a grudge, so just helping her required him to settle the score. After a while, she reached for Dev and snatched him back. She pulled him away from Shivi and looked at him cautiously. Seeing her black eyes looking at the boy like she had to protect him, Shivi couldn't help but laugh. He leaned in again and whispered into her ear, "Don't be nervous. People I want never get away. Just be good and wait for me here." After he said this, he turned and walked away, leaving her with the child in her arms and her heart beating erratically. Her cheeks burned. She hadn't felt like this in years.